Well, you can probably hear my dog barking. But this is episode 1 of Star Wars and Guitars. I'm Dev from Tiny Enormous. I'm joined with Ian in Burlington, Vermont, and Jon in... Are you in Long Beach? You're in LA right now. Are you probably
Long Beach.
You're in Long Beach at home. All right. I played with both of these guys, and really excited about this because we're all... I think we all have guitars, and we're all like gonna maybe play some music and make some noise, but also definitely we are Star Wars dorks in our hearts and in our minds. So, although I am wearing a Star Trek shirt, I realized today. So before we get started, can you guys talk about like what you're doing musically right now? I think that'd be a good place for us to get started.
Ian, go ahead.
Sure.
I got my,
Currently, I'm working on a follow-up album to my kind of debut solo album I just released back in June. It's been pretty cool. It's been kind of, with COVID and everything, I kind of just like this little home setup and done it mainly alone, but then had these, kind of chance, really not even like planned, but random, just kind of times where, I've been hanging out with people, and had them over and ended up, usually just on like a night of drinking and partying or whatever, and just kind of like throwing down some ideas, and then I'll go in and sift through all the stuff that we did and probably don't even remember playing, but then found some kind of cool stuff that then I build into like different songs. It's been kind of a cool way of going about doing, an album.
So, and I just want to make sure that I put this out here that Ian, the name that you're using is King Porgie, which is a name that you've been using for a long time. His album is freaking awesome. I listen to it pretty regularly, actually. Jon, where are you at? What are you doing? I know we talked about this before, but I lost that recording. So let's start from the top.
Well, the start of the quarantine, I had a 4-track cassette recorder set up. That just I've been using since my computer took a dump on me, and it just kind of went back to my grassroots of doing that kind of 4-track recording for like back in probably almost 30 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, we're old.
So I tried to go back into that. I was kind of successful with starting off. It was like what's it called? Like Quarantunes, that people have been using that a lot these days. It's I've just been doing the album by myself. It's really been like fine-tuning the recording process pretty much for months, like the past, almost a whole year now. Running everything into a 16-channel mixer and some EQs going straight into the 4-track, the cassette recorder, and trying to get the best sound I can, and just kind of messing around with how the songs are going, and then trying to produce it out. I've had to really like find out what works the best and what's the most efficient way to work on that, but I've kind of hit a speed bump with some stuff, with some family stuff, so I haven't really been working on tunes lately. Probably maybe three months have been kind of slow, but every once in a while I'll do I'll just jam on like Instagram Live or something like that for a while and mix it up with like some covers and some originals too.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you and Neptune Recovery is the name that that's the name of the band that I played with you, but that's also your name on Instagram, just for anybody who's watching. But I noticed like you would go back and forth between like clips of you recording stuff on the 4-track and like acoustic solo stuff pretty regularly. And I saw you get out a couple times. I was watching you live a few times. I think you were actually like playing outside.
I throw some progress clips up of the 4-track album, and then just kind of got waylaid for a little bit. But there's more time coming up.
Well, I'll tell you, you were getting some really cool drum tones. Like they sounded really like full somehow.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. All right, cool. So let's jump into the geek shit. All right. Favorite Star Wars movie and why?
Oh shit. All right, Ian, go ahead.
Yeah.
Man, that's a really tough question. You know what? I might be so bold. I mean, the more and more as I've let the last few years settle in. I almost be as bold to say that Rogue One.
Interesting.
I almost I mean, of the originals, it's so it's hard to tell just because it's obviously one of those would be my favorite. Like, I definitely would agree that it's hard for me to pick a favorite because there's so many have different qualities. The Empire is definitely by general consensus, but it's the best made of the Star Wars movies. Especially considering if you consider the original trilogy and the prequels, it's. But I think people want to latch on to the classics, but the last time I saw Rogue One, and maybe even only the second time I saw it, since it came out, I just really kind of sunk in how good of a movie that was, and just how, it really all it took. I mean, The Mandalorian is proving it too. Is once the corporate heads don't have some sort of attachment to try to cater to little kids and families and the nerds at the same time, they can just make a movie or make a series, and surprise, surprise, that ends up being the most, accepted and successful. But it's, not to say obviously the other Star Wars are more successful than Rogue One, but money wise, and obviously it all comes down to money. But I'm going to say Rogue One. Long-winded answer.
It's not an unpopular answer right now. I've been talking to some other friends who are like hardcore Star Wars fans from our whole lives. We're old enough to remember the originals, and it's Rogue One really is a good flick. I don't like the Borgully scene because it's it has the tendency to ruin one's mind, and then these tentacles come out and he's totally fine. I'm why was that even in there? But other than that, it's not really, that doesn't really derail it. But everyone acts their asses off in that too. K2 is an awesome addition to the droids in the world. John, do you have one? What's yours?
Oh man, yeah, it is kind of hard to say. I mean, think of Empire Strikes Back. It's got the peril, and it's got a lot of laughs. The just the characters being sassy with one another. Lando and Han and Leia just kind of you're just digging at each other, which is a lot of fun. But they wouldn't really have that if there wasn't New Hope. So I gotta say New Hope. I mean, Rogue One is amazing. That's I can watch that any time of day. So there's a lot of them I can watch multiple times. It took me a while to really get into the prequels, to dive into those. I really loved them when I first saw them. And then the more I watched them, initially, I was oh, the dialogue's a little harsh right here. Oh, man, it's hard to watch. I hate sand. It gets everywhere.
Okay. I was trying to getting my girlfriend into Star Wars, and we started with episode. We just said, screw it. Let's start with episode 1. Do it, chronologically, not just how they came, or not, real time chronologically. And it was actually ended up being really fun watching episode 1, but we probably got, it was like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 fucking session with us just watching. All I could think about that whole thing. I just could think about the movie The Room, the way the dialogue, the way it's just the way it's edited and the way the dialogue happens. I mean, I don't think it's specifically the actors, but the actors definitely play a part in it.
Oh my God,
but it just literally plays like Tommy Wiseau's The Room. It's just that level of cringe.
I'm so glad you brought up the editing, because the editing is freaking terrible in that. And I think Ben Burt edited it, but he had to deal with Lucas being we're going to change this on the fly. But there's a part where it just cuts to Anakin and Padme just sitting there staring at each other by the fireplace. I'm okay, what? She's wearing just a necklace and a low cut dress. I'm what is going on here? But the dialogue in that particular movie, it's did they not make a second draft of the dialogue? I mean,
I think it's just I heard this. It posts articles or interviews where Hayden Christensen studied the way James Earl Jones was speaking, and he kind of was delivering the same kind of don't act surprised, Your Highness. We know this.
Which is the whole thing, is that he becomes this mechanical kind of adaptation of himself. So.
Yeah, but it's he's already delivering the lines similar to James Earl Jones's Amber, you know.
Well, I had people who hated him too, and they were like, "Well, he's just like stupid emo teenage, intergalactic emo teenager," and I'm like, that is actually who the worst villain in the universe would be. It would be some like emo teen kid. But the sand gets everywhere thing. Just think about it for a second. It's like sand gets everywhere. It's rough and it's coarse. Unlike you, who's all soft and pretty. It's like
it's almost like he was trying to write in like a subliminal sexual euphemism kind of thing because they're like kind of like flirting with each other, but that makes it even more cringe.
Well, and he was a slave kid. He was a slave kid who grew up on a desert planet. So yeah, he would hate sand, and he would be in love with his beautiful, powerful woman. Like, but they couldn't just like take it to an editor to like make that a little bit better. Anyway,
think of that kind of genius level, like where he can pretty much build anything he wanted to, or you know, he's got all these skills, right? Like much more than an average adult on Tatooine. How good do you think his social skills will be if he's so involved and like
that's a good point.
Super laser focused on his like his minutia of you know, design and building. So,
and he was a slave to like a flying anteater, you know, who happened to be the only person that he could be the slave to. The only person he could be a slave to, because anyone else, his Jedi, his like midichlorians would have been able to like manifest, you know, like get him to be like, you're gonna let me go now, and like without even he would just walk out. So like it is a very
they wave your hand around some kind of Jedi.
No, they won't. You know, that's actually really great. Actually, now that you mentioned episode 1 is probably my favorite of, not my favorite. It's my favorite of the prequels. I hadn't really thought about that. I actually I think A New Hope is the best. I think that.
I would like to change my answer. Sorry.
Well,
it's Star Wars.
It is, and like at the time, so Empire is it's probably my favorite to watch, but the ending is unsatisfying for me because it doesn't actually like end. You know, like you kind of have to watch Jedi. You're like, oh well, Han's gone. They're good taking the Falcon. But it is gorgeous, and if you look back at the like,
unless you really don't like those characters, then it's
well, the special editions too. Like they didn't really change Empire that much. They changed a bunch about Jedi. They changed a ton about A New Hope. But Empire, they were like, it's actually still pretty awesome. But it also like they build that whole world pretty seamlessly. You know, like it just kind of all of a sudden makes sense. Even if you've never watched Star Wars before, you can still watch A New Hope and understand what the Force is, who the Empire is, you know, who the Rebels are, without it seeming like. I mean, I know, I don't know, Ian, if you read it or into as much sci-fi as John and I are, but like a lot of times the world building is like, okay, get through it so that we can like get into the story.
That's what makes Star Wars what it was. I mean, it bridges that gap. It makes it so accessible. Because I'm not personally, I don't get really like, you know, into like, I don't read a ton of sci-fi. Like I love sci-fi, but I have especially when it comes to reading, I have big ADHD, so like a lot of sci-fi stuff I just can't because of that. You know, you're just like, it's just like, you know, I'm trying to get just to the meat of it, and just them explaining the world. I'll read a page 6 times in a row because I just keep spacing out trying to get through, you know.
Yeah, and that's what
different words that he made up.
And that's why, I mean, they even, if you look at the edits of Star Wars, or A New Hope, I guess, as it's called now, as if I'm old enough to remember. I was 1 when it came out. I don't like remember it coming out. But there was originally a scene where like Luke is watching the battle up above Tatooine, and they cut it out because they were like, that's just exposition. We don't need that. It's not building the world. Like they were doing the like old school sci-fi, you know, slowly build the world, and they changed it to a way that actually made sense.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Well, and I think what worked really well with Star Wars is that he's, you know, essentially stole all the ideas of the Force and all these things. Not stole, but you know what I mean? It's all taken from like different kind of, you know, different things that most people generally have a basic knowledge of. You know, you hear the Force and, you know, you get what they're talking about. Like it doesn't have to really be explained past some sort of spiritual energy that is in the universe that, you know, it just is, you know, it's something that's very, I think, just kind of, it talks about things that don't need to be explained as much as maybe, I don't know.
Well, they're universal ideas.
The stuff that you can actually see. You know,
it's what Quentin Tarantino would say it was an homage to. It wasn't a rip-off. It was an homage.
All right, now we got through that. That was Star Wars. Now it's time for guitars. I played with both of you guys, and there are questions that I want to ask in general. But I think one of the main ones is like, what are some of the techniques that you use all the time that you just don't see other people use? And Ian, I'm going to steal one from you just really quickly, which is you would change like just from A major to A minor, like just go back and forth where people. I'd heard it called changing the gender of a chord or changing the gender of a song, you know, like moving back and forth between and not even changing keys, but just like you would do stuff like that all the time. That as your bass player, I was like, well, I'm playing the root; it's the same root, and it forced me to be like to be playing the sixes and the thirds in ways that complemented the chord a little bit or the sevens. Mm-hmm. So, like, are there any other techniques or things that you folks do, and you can play a little bit, and we'll just kind of roll through it.
I guess, John?
Oh.
He's eating. All right, I'll go.
Oh, yeah.
I guess...
I thought that was a question directed at Ian.
Oh, well, that
was like a general... I don't know. I mean, I'm terrible at those kinds of questions because I don't know a ton of theory. Like, it all is off of... I actually remember there was one time specifically with you, I remember... There was some run, and I was doing a run on the guitar, and you were doing, and I was like, this is the run on the bass to kind of like harmonize with it, and you were like, no, that doesn't work, and I was like, well, like I kind of was like, we were kind of going back and forth, and I was like, well, let's just do it together and see how it sounds, and we did it, and then you stopped, and you were like, oh, I see, you did a this to minor or something. I don't know, I honestly don't remember exactly what you said, but I was like, yeah, that, you know what I mean? Yeah. But it was just like, so I started to like kind of get into words the techniques and stuff I use, other than the one thing I would say actually the major minor thing, it's I think deeply influenced by like Bowie and Radiohead mostly. I think both of them, Radiohead more than Bowie, but he does too, just utilizes that major to minor shift. And I just, you know, things that are all minor are too sad, things that are all major are too happy, and it's just good to be able to mix both and just, you know, it's and I don't know. It's just there's a weird kind of cool transition, and it kind of again bridges this thing in the brain between your left and right brain, or whatever you want to call it. And I don't know if that's technically what that would be. It's kind of
I noticed that with I've been going back into Hall and Oates, and they'll do that.
Pennsylvania represent.
Sorry, they do that a lot in their songs. Well, the verse will be a minor. In a minor chord or minor key changes, and then the chorus goes into a major, so it sounds more like there's some mystery involved. And all right, here we go, and then hey, things work out, that kind of thing.
It's a great way to do pop without it being like crazy bubblegum.
Yeah. It added an accessibility to because a lot of the music that we played was pretty heavy, but like it added an accessibility to it. The other thing that Ian does a lot that I'm not sure if you realize is you use the melodic minor. So like I don't remember how the rest of how you play that, but like use that there. But it's also and both of those are both parts of his songs where you use the major sixth and the major seventh on top of the minor chord. And it gives it this kind of like Baroque feel or something, So like instead of like most people would play, but Ian, while ascending only, would do, and it just kind of gives it a much. It doesn't give it like if you're a harmonic minor, it's kind of a Spanish feel, but you give it kind of almost a classical feel to the playing a lot, and it also is like these major notes that are on top of a minor chord, so it's the same kind of dissonance that I think that you enjoy doing.
I did the opposite actually in my recent single that I just released. I didn't really realize it when I was doing it, but I'm doing like the end of the song is going, it's going, C to G, and it's just like you're the cure for my heart, but it's like I'm doing like that over like the major.
Yeah.
It's in you're the cure for my heart. And it's like, it doesn't quite work, but it does once there's like all those kind of notes in there. Like, I don't know. I just, like, I did it kind of by accident. I was just like, the song I recorded kind of just off the cuff, like, and I could have changed it to like that minor C to the G, but I just kind of left it with the C, and it just kind of created this I don't know, whatever.
Just like a microsecond of dissonance in there. Yeah, John,
Yeah, that's the key. It's just having it there for a second, so you're like, wait, and it just kind of goes to like the next thing, and like, yeah.
John, you got anything that you want to add that you try that you do regularly?
Yeah, I love. I luckily thank God for ultimateguitarchords.com. I've learned the chords that I've already been playing, what they're called. So I guess it's instead of regular D, you kind of make it that.
Yeah.
Is that a major seventh?
Sounds like a major seventh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those kind of chords
Pretty.
I really like, and it kind of goes into my appetite for like bossa nova kind of chords. Reminds me of that. So I've used those quite a bit in like older Neptune Recovery songs, and even like like something's always resolving. The chords are always resolving themselves, like going back to so there's also that, adding majors to minor to another major, like resolution. You know.
John thinks very or like melodically. Like there's this melody that he almost always builds, and it like they do always kind of resolve on something. I'm thinking of Rumor Mill in particular for some reason. Like it's just like there's this melody, and then Ian, like I love singing harmonies, so like the harmonies, but then it all kind of goes crazy, and then just kind of comes back together onto the tonic, and it really kind of all comes together. He likes that tension and release. Whereas I think Ian thinks I don't think that Ian ever hears harmony or a melody alone. I think that Ian is always thinking of harmony. I really do. Like
Which I did. It's funny actually. I was recently just hanging out with. I play bass in this band, the Jesse Taylor band, right now, and I had her, who's Jesse, and our Nick, our guitar player, over. And we're just hanging out one night, and I pulled up this random part that the guitar part, and just had her. I was like, all right, now do this harmony, now this harmony, now this harmony, like over it. And I don't know. I just never realized that. My buddy Nick was like, well, like you're just hearing all that at once, and I was just like, well, yeah, like you just hear a melody, and you just hear those harmonies like on it, like.
But you don't even hear like parallel. You don't hear parallel like most people like me. I start off with like the parallel thirds, and then I might figure out the sevenths or something. But you'll hear like the melody will be going like this, and you will have the harmony like two other parts that are singing in parallel with each other, but aren't actually following the main melody. Sometimes they're following the chordal structures. It's really interesting. So I think that informs your ability to kind of move back and forth between chords, because you could be singing on top of that while the melody's going, and sometimes it sounds like you fell down the steps or something.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, what the hell's going on? But it gets held together by all the harmonies in it. I'm going to adopt a bit of what John was saying, which is that like definitely going to the sevenths. Like I said, instead of just the chords, the sevenths and also the ninths are really big for me. But I love the like finding the inversions of a chord. Hard to get up there on a cheap $50 guitar, but like finding them and just kind of playing through it. It sounds like I'm playing a lot more than just figuring that out. Just the inversions of the chord and moving them around. That's combine that with slides, and somehow people are like, "Wow!" And I'm like, "It's literally the same three notes." I'm just doing it kind of all over the place. I know I did a lot of that with John's band.
But again, you hear it, this way, or where you're just playing this way, a billion times with every song. Just to hear that variation of it is just pleasing to the ear, because it's like familiar again with the kind of novelty new to a degree.
Yeah. Hey, Ian, can I ask a question real quick? The harmonies, did you find that like that was because of the implication of harmonies? Or implementation, the implementation of the harmonies that you like to use a lot are like because of the harmonies that you kind of fell in love with listening to, like with the old bands, their favorite bands and stuff?
For me, definitely. And again, I mean, going back to Bowie and Radiohead would probably be the two biggest influences on that, and the Beatles.
Right.
You know, but then I get, you know, a lot of those, and then I System of a Down's another one with vocal harmony, especially. They do these really cool fucking harmonies that are, you know, a lot based on, you know, these more kind of like, you know, these, you know, Eastern Europe, Southern Eastern Europe, Middle Eastern almost sounding kind of scales that that just, and it's like and I can't get that. It's like, it took me a while to like not do that so much in songs that I would write and try to do. I kind of try to force that into everything. I think I kind of like, you know, I kind of put myself in a corner sound wise, you know, people be like, oh, and you just always do these things. I'm like, oh, I guess I shouldn't do that with every single song that I write, but
I didn't realize how different your, because I've sang harmonies with both you guys, and I didn't realize how different Ian's approach to harmony was until I brought in, I think it was maybe Rise Against or something like that, and I was like, that's like home base for me, is like Rise Against, Offspring style, like layered harmonies, but it's so completely different than the types of harmonies that you write, which are like part of the lead line, as opposed to this like wall of 4-part harmonies that are almost, it's almost like what a string section would play. You could hear like the, you know, Oscar, oh, but like yours, it would be actually with the words. Helped me out a ton with the band with whom I'm playing now. Hey, thank you so much for checking out the first episode of Star Wars and Guitars. Of course, I want to thank Ian and Jon for both being patient with me while I edited this. This took way longer than I was expecting it to, and for joining me for this conversation. I don't just do stuff like this. I also do a lot of music and other videos like guitar and drum lessons and even some audio video production stuff. Of course, I want to thank my patrons that help make all this stuff happen. I'd love if you would check that out. If not, you know, follow, subscribe, comment, like, do all the things that everyone on the internet is always asking you to do all the time. Cheers and take care of yourself.